remember the time when we started communities in Triratna. So the theme at the moment is friendship and communication within the spiritual community. And I'm just going to say a very few words about the history of this and then draw it out. So when I first came in touch with Triratna, I was already a practicing Buddhist. I had a good practice. I had been in Japan, practiced Thai Buddhism as well. And my first contact was with the first Triratna community, which was in Purley, which is still there, Aryatara. And then a bit later, I met with Bhante Sangha, and he had a small community, 4, I think, of them living together. And after the first big retreat I did that summer, there were about 30 of us, all long-haired, bearded, well, the men anyway. That was silly, sorry. And really into practice. So we decided on that retreat to find places to live. And we tried, rental places, really, really difficult. So we squatted in Camden. There were lots of beautiful big houses, and we just moved in. Sometimes whole streets were emptied by the council, and we would just move into a warm house that wasn't going to be worked on for like 6 months. And the purpose, in a way, there was just to build friendship and community, to get to know each other, which really worked, actually. A lot of us are still friends, we still know each other. And I think that in itself is quite an important part of the history of community in the movement. Out of that sort of develops a different approach, which is projects. So communities were set up with particular purpose. So like say a very obvious first one, clear, still going, are the communities above the London Buddhist Centre in Bethnal Green. They were set up to build the London Buddhist Centre. And I was part of that community as a carpenter. And there were like 26 of us. And we were a community. We meditated together, did cultural things, soirees, all kinds of interesting things. But basically, we were there to work to build what is now the centre. So it was very clear what the project was. There are others that I just wanted to mention. Karuna, who we heard about during the tea break, bought a house not very far away for their fundraisers. That was more than 25 years ago or more. And they used it as a base for their project of fundraising. People would go out and do the projects from there, and that carried on for quite a long time. I'll say more about the ending of that later. The other place I wanted to mention was already been mentioned this afternoon, is Vajradaka, the meditation retreat centre. Now I moved there, I think in 1981, and it had just started. It was it's an ex-farm, needed quite a lot of work, and when it was started, it was bought by an order member, and the idea was just a place to practice meditation. Then I moved there, and a few others moved there, and we had people coming on retreat, And I think it was me who just basically said, people just don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to work in their meditation. They do simple beginners classes, and then they come on retreat, and we're doing like 7-8 hours a day of meditation, and they're lost completely. So what we need to do is to develop foundations of meditation courses, which we can do at the retreat center. So 5 of us started that, developing these foundation courses, which we then took out to the whole movement, actually, not just Britain. We would do these, the Vajradaka road tour. It was great. Went to every center in Britain and Germany and other places, and then up Australia, New Zealand, and so on, America. I love that bit. But we were there to develop meditation teaching in the terms of clarity about the process of how you work in meditation, the skills that you need to develop to get into meditation proper, as it were, which just sort of, as it were, runs itself. So I think that was a really good example of a project-based community, and it was really great. That's all we did. We didn't do anything else really. It was wonderful. Then there's a sort of different approach, it's not radically different because they're all sort of included in each other, the building up community and Sangha and friendship and project, and a training and practice-based community. They all merge together. So the last 2 communities I've been in, Udayana, which was before the one I'm in now, and Arya Karana, which is the community that at least 3 of us here are in at the moment. It's not project-based, and it's not just about developing friendship and community. We do that, of course, but it's much more about being articulate and clear about the processes of working on ourselves. And to do that, we have a certain amount of structure, like we sit every morning. Pretty much everyone is there, 7 o'clock, boom. And we then have breakfast, and we, as most mornings, talk about our practice, what's happening, what's not happening, how we make it happen. And I have to say, it's really wonderful. It can be challenging, of course, to be open, I don't want to talk about myself, but yeah, actually, that sort of defensiveness relaxes, and people realize they're in a safe place and they're not going to be attacked or judged. In fact, when things are difficult, usually me saying, "Oh, good, let's let's get into that," and it's a really wonderful thing, actually. But it needs people to really be into that. There are lots of other possible potential lifestyles that people can choose. Living alone, with a partner, married, kids, wandering mendicant. Just people do that, going from one hostel to another, or one country to another. And they all have their place, I think. But coming into a community really is interesting, because some people, they're not clear actually what they want. And we get people who come in, or in relatively recent years, they didn't know, they had never been into community. Their only experience of living with men was public school, which was perhaps very traumatic, the army, which was very traumatic, or prison, which was very traumatic, just to give 3 examples. And then all of a sudden they're with these men, and all that trauma is there as well. And causes difficulties, and people have to sort of take responsibility for that. And sometimes that's quite difficult for people, and then they leave. Yeah. And what has been happening in our community, what is now Arya Karana community, is pretty much everyone is really into it. Yeah. And that, it shows, actually, it makes a difference. People are growing and developing, and that quality of friendship and connection is also there. And people have projects. You know, someone in the community is giving a talk tomorrow, for example, in a particular project that they're involved with. So the 3 elements, you know, friendship, community, connection, project, and the training and development approach, they're all here, actually, in our community. I just wanted to very briefly check the time. The house we're in, which is nearby, in Stoke Newington, it started as a Karana project-based house. And more and more of the project of people left. And then a few of us came in who were not Karana based, and then all the Karana people left, leaving in a way a completely new community, with no project, not a project-based community, but one on training and growth and development. And that has developed over the last 5 years. People who weren't really into that left. So now it's much clearer, and we changed the name just of the community to make that distinction clear. Now it's Arya Karana, or noble compassion. And we're very grateful to, you know, the basis on which our community grew, and Karana own the house, and they're very, very behind what we do. So that's great, partially because the rent is cheap. So going back or into the growth and development thing. Now, when people come into the community, there's very often habits, personal habits that people have, and there are unhelpful ones. And there's one particular one that drives me mad. And that is when people don't finish their sentences. So it becomes, I'm not looking at anyone. Because it really is anti-growth and development and anti-communication. If someone starts a sentence and they don't put in the last word, very often I just don't know what the context is. I don't know what they're talking about. So if I say, what was that last word before you jumped off onto something else completely randomly different? And they go, oh, this, and then it's clear, you know. Right, okay. So actually things have really changed in the community over the last 5 years. People mostly finish their sentences. Hooray. Now, which is good. But there's an internal basis for that, which is finishing one's trains of thought without jumping off randomly to something else, without actually having follow-up or depth about what it is that you originally started to think about or explore. So there's a direct relationship here between the external and the internal. So that the continuity of going deeper about what's happening, recognizing, oh, that and that is here in my experience, this is not very helpful, this is really helpful, how can I kind of work against that, how can I develop that, go deeper with that, stay with that positive, helpful quality, let it, you know, change the unhelpful quality. That internal process is an internal mirror reflection of finishing sentences. So you see what I mean? It kind of, it's a training. And I mean, I have a very dear friend. I don't think he's watching. I've known since we were young. Every now and then, he just gets into the habit of not finishing his sentences. And because we've been friends since we were 15, I can shout at him, you know, it's sort of okay. And then he goes, oh, okay, and then, you know, he drops it. So continuity about working, developing on processes internally, developing clarity of communication within the community is just an aspect, really. But it covers lots of things. It covers that the vulnerability, positive vulnerability thing, where you're just open. You say, well, yeah, I've got this real difficulty with not really being into this meditation, and what do I do, and it's this, and how can I work with that, and real insights coming out of that over breakfast. And that it's like real moments of inspired understanding about these things that make a change, actually. Now, in community, it's relatively easy. We're all there. Well, I say relatively easy because it's not always completely easy. You know, people have their reactions and their responses and their defenses. But people who are in the community are actually up for it. Going back to that phrase, am I up for this? Yes. And therefore things can be worked with. In the larger Sangha, people coming to the classes, being on retreat, in a way, that's a bigger picture, macrocosm, of that process. We're learning to be open and reveal ourselves and talk about our practice. And I was talking with someone actually online the other day, very experienced order member, actually in Australia, who said, we never talk about our meditation at the centres. We never say what's going on. And this, I recognized it as something as being true actually in the past for decades. Decades. And I can say that because I've been here decades. So it's going back, I have to keep reminding people, talk about your practice. Notice if, the positive sides of that, and if it's negative, anything like you start to get, you've had good meditation and you're showing off about your meditation, well, I was in 40, if that should happen. So dealing with those downsides of talking, but acknowledging that talking about your meditation practice with people in the Sangha at classes isn't actually only about talking to others. It's also about hearing yourself talk. And this is really important. We sometimes our thoughts about what's going on internally are not very clear. But if we're with some people and we need to be clear, so that they don't go, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You have to be clear. So the clarity then is objectified, as it were, outside of yourself, and you hear your own words. And I mean, a bit of nodding going on, it really works. You go, so that's what's happening, that's what I need to do. And then it just sort of happens. You do what you need to do, or what you need to do just happens. And there's real shifts and changes in your practice on the basis of communication.